The Arrogant Empire. In the far reaches of the galaxy, there was an empire that stretched across thousands of stars. This empire had conquered countless worlds and enslaved hundreds of species. For centuries, no one had dared to stand against them. Their fleets were vast, their soldiers ruthless, and their leaders believed themselves to be untouchable. The empire's people told stories about their greatness. They said no species could ever challenge their power. They had defeated warriors with claws sharper than steel, and hunters with reflexes faster than lightning. Each enemy had fallen, each resistance had been crushed. They thought themselves gods among mortals. In the great hall of the imperial capital, the rulers gathered. Holograms of conquered worlds floated above them like trophies. One commander spoke with pride. "We have broken every rival we faced. No power in this galaxy can match us." Another laughed. "Even the predators of the rim worlds fell before us. What species is left that could resist?" The hall filled with cruel laughter. They believed their victory was eternal, far away on a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. Humanity lived without knowledge of this empire. Humans worked, built cities, fought their own wars, and dreamed of the stars. They had not yet met the empire, but whispers had begun to spread. The empire's scouts had discovered Earth. Reports were delivered to the High Council. The humans were described as soft-skinned, weak-bodied, short-lived. "They are nothing," said one of the counselors. "They will kneel like all the others." Yet one curious general requested more information. She studied recordings of human battles from Earth's history. She saw men charging with swords against guns, pilots fighting with broken aircraft, and soldiers refusing to surrender even when surrounded. There was something different in the human, something that unsettled her. "They fight with desperation," she whispered. "They fight as if defeat is worse than death." But her warning was ignored. The council laughed again. "They are savages, nothing more," declared the emperor. "The humans will fall like the rest." Back on Earth, humanity continued its daily life, unaware of the storm that was coming. But strange events began to happen. Astronomers detected signals from deep space, patterns too regular to be natural. Pilots reported strange lights following them in the upper atmosphere. Satellites mysteriously failed, leaving parts of the world blind to the skies. Governments grew uneasy, but the truth remained hidden from the people. Meanwhile, the empire prepared. They decided to send a single fleet, not their full strength. For them, it was not war, it was entertainment. The commanders joked about who would be the first to enslave Earth's leaders. Some argued the humans might offer resistance for a few days. Others laughed and said the humans would surrender in hours. Their arrogance blinded them. The Empire's fleet cut through space like a blade. Massive warships, bristling with weapons, engines glowing like suns. Inside, alien soldiers sharpened their claws, checked their rifles, and prepared to taste the fear of a new species. They expected screams, begging, and surrender. They had no idea what awaited them. One scout ship was sent ahead. It slipped into Earth's orbit, cloaked from human eyes. Its crew observed human cities, millions of lights glowing against the night. They mocked the sight. "These creatures think themselves advanced, but they are still children playing with fire," said one soldier. The captain smirked. "Let them play. Soon their toys will be ours." But then, something unexpected happened. A human defense satellite, one thought to be malfunctioning, locked onto the cloaked scout. Missiles launched, cutting through the black sky. The scout ship panicked, its cloaking field flickered, the missiles struck, and for the first time in centuries an Imperial vessel exploded. On Earth, scientists stared in shock at the debris falling from the heavens. They realized they were not alone. When news reached the Empire's council, the laughter faded. For the first time in a long time, they felt a chill of unease. "How could primitives destroy one of our ships?" demanded the Emperor. The general who had warned them spoke again. "You underestimated them. Humans fight with a spirit you do not understand." The Emperor growled, his eyes burning with pride and fury. "Then we will teach them what it means to defy us," he declared. "Send the fleet. Earth will burn." And so it began. The Empire, which believed no enemy could challenge them, was now marching toward its greatest mistake. They thought humanity would bow like all the others. They did not know humanity's true nature. They did not know that war with humans was not like war with any other species. They did not know that once pushed, humanity would fight until the very stars themselves trembled. The arrogant empire was about to learn the truth, that the smallest spark, once lit, could burn down even the mightiest of empires. The first clash. The Empire's fleet entered the Sol system with thunder in their engines. Dozens of colossal warships darkened the stars as they approached Earth. To them, this was not a war. It was a spectacle. They expected the humans to panic, to surrender, to kneel before their overwhelming power. But humanity was not prepared to kneel. When the first alien warships appeared on radar, the world united in fear and determination. Nations that once argued and fought with each other now spoke with one voice. For the first time in history, humanity was not divided. The survival of their species demanded it. The alien fleet sent a message across all human channels. A cold, commanding voice declared, "Surrender your world, surrender your armies, surrender your freedom, res, ist, and we will erase your kind from existence." Many listening felt their blood freeze, but others clenched their fists, their eyes filled with fire. Among them were soldiers, scientists, and ordinary men and women who refused to bow. The message ended, silence followed, and then came humanity's answer. It was not a surrender, it was a defiance. A single human general spoke the words, "We do not kneel, we fight." The first battle began in Earth's orbit. The Empire's ships moved with practiced precision. Their weapons fired beams of energy that ripped through satellites and stations. Cities below trembled as the night sky lit up with fire. The aliens believed victory was certain. But then, something they had never seen before unfolded. Human pilots launched in swarms of small fighters. Compared to the Empire's massive cruisers, these fighters were fragile, almost laughable. But humans did not fight like other species. They moved unpredictably, diving into blind spots, turning into their enemy's fire, and using teamwork that confused the Empire's computers. One alien commander shouted in frustration, "They fight like chaos itself. They ignore the patterns." Another screamed, "How are they striking our weak points so quickly?" The answer was simple. Humans had studied war for thousands of years. They were artists of strategy, and in chaos, they found opportunity. In one clash, a human pilot deliberately rammed his burning fighter into the bridge of an Imperial destroyer. The explosion tore through the alien ship, splitting it in half. The aliens were stunned. Never had they seen a species so willing to sacrifice itself for victory. To them, such acts were madness. To humans, it was courage. Down on Earth, resistance grew stronger. Civilians joined militias, scientists converted factories into weapon plants, and engineers turned communication satellites into orbital T-RAPs. Every man and woman became part of the defense. The Empire had expected a frightened species. Instead, they faced an entire planet that burned with defiance. But the Empire was not finished. Their fleet regrouped. Massive dreadnoughts moved into firing position. They unleashed waves of destruction across human defenses. Hundreds of fighters were vaporized. Orbital stations shattered, entire fleets crippled. The Empire's commanders smiled again, believing the humans would finally break. Yet the humans still fought. Even in defeat, they adapted. They lured alien ships into Earth's gravity wells, tricking them into crashes. They used nuclear warheads, weapons the aliens considered crude, but devastating when detonated at close range. The sky burned with fire and steel, but still, humanity endured. Then came the moment that changed everything. An Imperial flagship moved closer to Earth, its weapons locked on major cities. It prepared to demonstrate the Empire's true power by wiping out millions in a single strike. But before the order could be given, a formation of human bombers broke through. They flew directly into the heart of the alien fleet. The flagship's shields shimmered as bombs detonated against it. One by one, the bombers were destroyed, but they did not turn away. The last surviving bomber rammed into the flagship's reactor. The explosion lit the heavens, a burning sun that shattered the night. The Empire's flagship, the pride of their fleet, was gone. Panic spread through the alien ranks. How could primitives destroy what no other species had touched? How could they lose a flagship to a handful of reckless pilots? The Emperor, watching from afar, rose in fury. He had promised a quick victory, but humanity had made him bleed. His voice echoed through the command channels. Burn their world. Break their will. Show them the power of the Empire. The battle raged on, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The Empire began to realize this war would not be easy. They had underestimated the humans. They had mistaken desperation for weakness. They had mistaken defiance for fear, and now the war that was meant to last days threatened to last years. The first clash was not the end, it was only the beginning. And as the smoke cleared, humanity stood bloodied but unbroken. For the first time in history, the galaxy had witnessed the fury of humankind, the unbreakable will. The Empire expected the humans to collapse after the first battles. They believed Earth would be crushed under fire, its people broken, its armies scattered. But instead of surrender, they found resistance growing fiercer every day. Humanity refused to bow. The skies above Earth became a graveyard of burning ships. Wreckage of human fighters and alien cruisers drifted together. Cities below burned with firestorms as bombardment struck. Yet from the ruins, men and women rose to fight again. Every loss only hardened their will. Families who had never held weapons picked them up. Students left classrooms to join militias. Doctors treated the wounded by day and fought by night. Factories ran without rest, turning steel and fuel into weapons. Earth itself had become a soldier. Every street, every field, every mountain, the Empire could not understand it. Other species begged for mercy when faced with such destruction. But humans did not. They fought even when hope seemed lost. They fought even when entire cities vanished in fire. The Empire's commanders muttered in disbelief. They are not fighting for victory. They are fighting because surrender does not exist in them. One battle on the surface shook the Empire to its core. An alien legion descended upon a human city, armored and armed with plasma rifles. They marched through ruins expecting to crush weak survivors. But from the rubble, a swarm of human defenders rose. Farmers, children barely grown, wounded soldiers, all charging with weapons in hand. The aliens opened fire, beams cut down dozens, yet the humans did not break. They fought hand to hand, they fought with blades, pipes, even stones. When the smoke cleared, the city was nothing but ash, and yet the aliens had been forced to retreat. In space, human fleets struck back with cunning. They hid ships inside asteroid fields, lured enemy warships into ambushes. They hacked into alien communications, turning their own commands into traps. One human captain transmitted false orders that led an entire Imperial fleet into a dead star's gravity well. Thousands of alien lives lost because of one clever human plan. The Empire began to realize that humans thrived in chaos. Where others saw disaster, humans saw opportunity. Still, the Emperor's rage grew. He demanded Earth's complete destruction. Dreadnoughts rained fire across continents. Entire oceans boiled, entire nations drowned in flames. Billions died, yet humanity still stood. Every death became fuel for vengeance. Among the survivors, stories spread of heroes who refused to fall, a pilot who fought with only one arm, guiding his fighter into enemy cruisers, a medic who carried wounded soldiers across burning streets, shielding them with her own body, a boy who picked up his father's rifle and defended his village until the last breath. These stories traveled across battlefields like fire, igniting courage in every heart. The Empire's generals met in frustration. "This is madness," one snarled. "No species can fight after losing so much." Another whispered in fear, "Perhaps they are not like the others. Perhaps we have awakened something we cannot control." But the Emperor silenced them with fury. "They are insects, and insects are crushed," he roared. Yet in the shadows of his words, doubt grew because rebellion had begun to stir. Other species, long enslaved by the Empire, were watching. They saw how humans fought without fear. They saw how humans resisted even against impossible odds, and whispers spread across the galaxy. If humans can fight them, why can't we? On Earth, the war raged like an endless storm, but humanity did not kneel. Every attack, every invasion, every bombardment only carved deeper into their spirit, a spirit the Empire could not kill. The world bled, but the world still stood. And as the smoke rose into the heavens, humanity's message to the stars grew louder. They would not surrender, they would not vanish, they would fight until the galaxy itself remembered their defiance. The Empire had sought to prove its dominance once again. Instead, it had created its worst nightmare. A species that would rather die on its feet than live on its knees. A species whose will was unbreakable, and the galaxy was beginning to believe that maybe, just maybe, humanity could win. Humanity strikes back. The Empire had thrown everything at Earth. Armies had landed, fleets had burned the skies, dreadnoughts had turned oceans into steam, yet humanity endured. Bloodied but unbroken, they refused to kneel. And then came a moment the Empire had never expected. Humanity did not just defend, humanity struck back. For months, human scientists and engineers worked in secret bunkers. They studied wreckage from fallen alien ships, broken engines, shattered weapons, fragments of armor. Piece by piece, they learned the Empire's secrets. They discovered how to mimic alien shields, how to overload their reactors, how to cloak ships from scanners. The invaders had given humanity the very tools of their destruction. With these stolen technologies, humans built hybrid fleets, old steel warships now armed with alien plasma, crude fighters now cloaked with stolen fields. Every weapon became a message. Every invention whispered the same defiance. We are not prey, we are hunters. The first counterstrike came without warning. A small human fleet slipped beyond Earth's orbit, vanishing into the black. The Empire's commanders laughed, calling it a desperate escape. But days terror screams filled their channels. Human ships appeared deep within Empire space. They targeted supply depots, fuel stations, and communication relays. Wherever they struck, chaos followed. Entire fleets starved without fuel. Colonies went dark without orders. The Empire began to stumble. The Emperor raged. "How can these savages strike at our heart?" he demanded. But no answer came, because no one had ever fought like humans before. They were not waging war to conquer. They were waging war to survive. And that made them unstoppable. In one daring raid, a squadron of human pilots disguised their ships with alien wreckage. They drifted silently into an Imperial shipyard. At the last moment, their engines roared to life. Bombs and torpedoes tore through the docks. By dawn, the Empire's greatest shipyard was nothing but burning metal floating in space. The galaxy trembled. If the Empire could be wounded there, it could be wounded anywhere. And the oppressed species of the galaxy were watching. On distant slave worlds, whispers turned into sparks of rebellion. "They bleed. The Empire bleeds," voices said. "If the humans can fight them, so can we." Revolts erupted, small at first, but growing. The galaxy had lived in fear for centuries. Now, for the first time, hope burned again. But humanity paid the price. Every raid cost lives, every battle left fleets shattered. Entire cities on Earth were still in ruins. Mothers buried their sons, children grew up without fathers, yet grief did not break them, it sharpened them. Every death became another reason to fight, every loss became another vow of vengeance. The Empire realized this was no ordinary war. They had unleashed something they could not control. A species that thrived in desperation, a species that turned pain into power. Their arrogance blinded them, and now it consumed them. The Emperor summoned his High Council. "Crush them, end this rebellion. Before it spreads," he roared. But even his generals looked uneasy. For every victory they claimed, humanity struck back twice as hard. For every world they burned, humanity lit another fire in the galaxy. And then humanity prepared for something greater. Not raids, not ambushes, but a strike at the Empire's very heart. They gathered fleets forged from desperation and stolen technology. They trained soldiers hardened by endless battles. They united under one cause, not just survival, but freedom. The plan was simple and impossible. Strike at the Empire's capital system, the core of their power. As human fleets assembled in the void, silence filled the command channels. Every pilot, every soldier, every commander knew this could be their final stand. Yet not one voice called for retreat, because humanity had made a choice. They would rather burn with the stars than live as slaves. The galaxy held its breath. The Empire braced for war, and humanity prepared to strike back harder than anyone had ever dared. The war that changed the galaxy. The galaxy held its breath as humanity prepared for the impossible. A fleet unlike any ever seen gathered beyond Earth. Old human warships welded with alien technology. Fighters cloaked with stolen fields. Carriers carrying weapons built from desperation. They were not the largest fleet, not the strongest, but they carried something the Empire could never understand. They carried unbreakable will. The target was the Empire's capital system, the very heart of its power. Worlds glittered with wealth stolen from slaves. Stations circled like rings of pride. Fleets guarded the skies like wolves. For centuries, no enemy had dared come close. Now, humans were coming. The Emperor sat in his throne of obsidian steel. He laughed when his scouts reported human ships entering the system. "Let them come," he sneered. We will burn them in our own skies. But beneath his laughter there was fear, because humanity had done what no species before them dared. They had brought war to his doorstep. The battle began with fire. Human fleets surged forward, torpedoes and plasma cutting through the void. The Empire's defenses roared back, dreadnoughts unleashing storms of destruction. Entire human squadrons were annihilated in seconds. But still they advanced. Every loss was fuel. Every death another vow of defiance. One human ship, crippled and burning, rammed into an enemy carrier. The explosion tore the skies apart. Another squadron flew directly into the path of an Imperial dreadnought, detonating warheads at point-blank range. The dreadnought's hull cracked, fire spilling like blood. Humans turned sacrifice into strategy and strategy into victory. The Empire's commanders shouted in disbelief. They are mad. They throw away their lives. But they did not understand. Humans were not throwing lives away. They were trading them. Every life bought another chance, another strike, another step closer to the Empire's heart. As the battle raged, human forces descended upon the capital world. The skies burned red as shuttles plunged through storms of fire. On the ground, soldiers fought through golden streets built on slavery. Every step forward cost blood, but still they marched. Banners of the Empire fell, replaced with the ragged flags of humanity. The Emperor unleashed his elite guard, creatures bred for war, armored in black steel. They clashed with human soldiers in brutal combat, but the humans fought with fury that could not be matched. One by one the guards fell, until only silence remained. At the palace gates, humanity stood face to face with the Empire's heart. The Emperor, furious and trembling with pride, faced them. "You are nothing but savages," he roared. "You cannot destroy an empire that has lasted for millennia." But humanity's commander stepped forward, his voice calm yet sharp. "Empires fall, but will endures," he said. And with those words, the palace walls shook as the final battle began. The fight was chaos, steel against fire, flesh against monsters. But humanity did not break. The Emperor himself took the field, wielding weapons of ancient power. Yet even he could not turn the tide. Surrounded, overwhelmed, he fell, his last roar drowned in the cries of victory. And in that moment the Empire shattered. Across the galaxy, enslaved worlds rose in rebellion. Chains were broken, banners burned, voices once silenced shouted in freedom. The galaxy was no longer the Empire's. It was no longer ruled by fear. Humanity had paid the highest price. Billions lost, worlds in ruins, fleets turned to ash. But they had won, not because they were stronger, not because they were faster, but because they never surrendered, because their will was unbreakable. The galaxy would remember that day forever. The day the arrogant empire fell, the day humanity, the overlooked, the underestimated, the defiant, changed everything. For centuries to come, whispers would travel from star to star, whispers of a species that refused to bow, whispers of warriors who fought until the stars themselves trembled, and those whispers carried one truth, that humanity's fury could never be defeated, that the war which changed the galaxy had been won not by empires, but by will.